Hi everyone, hello, how are you doing? I hope you are doing good. So welcome to another video of Control and Coordination, Chapter 9. In this video, we will be talking about the next part of the chapter, that is endocrinology. We begin with discussing what is hormone and what are the mechanism of hormone action. So basically two main type of hormone action that occurs in a human body. That is what we are going to see in this video. Okay, so first of all, what is an endocrine system? You have studied in lower standard. There are two types of hormonal system: endocrine and exocrine. So endocrine basically secrete their hormones with the help of glands and directly into the bloodstream. So that is what is endocrine system. And exocrine system, wherein the secretion of the hormones will take place via ducts. Okay, with the help of the tubes or with the help of the ducts, the hormones or the secretion will be transferred from the gland to the target organ. Whereas in endocrine, the hormone is directly released into the blood. Okay. So hormones are what? Hormones are, in simple terms, they are basically chemical messengers. We can call them as chemical messengers. Okay. They are non-nutrient in nature, non-nutrient. And they can act as an intercellular messenger and are produced in trace amounts. So we should need to know this, that hormones are most of the time, generally, they are produced in very minute quantities. Okay, though they play a very important role in the development of an individual's body and carrying out various functions in the body, still they are released and secreted in very minute, in very trace amounts. Okay, so hormones can be of different nature. Different natures of hormone can be found in an individual. Different nature means their chemical composition can be of different compositions. Okay, like you see over here, they can be either proteinic in nature in the form of peptide or polypeptide or protein hormones. Okay, or they can be in the form of steroids. Okay, in 11th standard, we discussed different categories of biomolecules. So, under fatty acid and under the fat category, we discussed what are steroids. Okay, so in the protein part, you see insulin, glucagon, pituitary hormones, hypothalamic hormone. These are some of the examples that fall under the category of proteinic nature hormones. Means that's mostly their chemical composition is protein in nature. Then you have steroids, which are fatty acid containing hormones. Example are cortisol, testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. Don't worry, these are some new names that are coming. We are going to see these many of these hormones. What role do they play? Which glands secrete this hormone, and what will be the deficiency diseases if they are not secreted in sufficient amount. Then another category is thyroid hormones, which are known as iodothyronine, in which iodine play a very important role. And then finally, you have amino acid derivatives. That is from the protein, breakdown of the protein, you have amino acids, and then these are adrenaline and non-adrenaline, which fall under this category. So there can be these multiple types of hormone based on their chemical nature or based on the chemical composition. Okay, now moving to the mechanism of action. So there are two important mechanisms of how an hormone acts. Basically, when a hormone is secreted, how do they go and trigger the target organ? So the first one is the that is what we are going to see in this slide. Okay, so first just we begin with step one. That is the hormones are first released into the bloodstream. Okay, they are released into the bloodstream and through which they travel to the target site. Because we are talking about endocrine system, so all the hormones will be released into the bloodstream only. When we were talking about exocrine system, exocrine means the hormones will be released in the form of tubings. I mean, in the tube or in via with the help of ducts, they will travel from one part of the body to the another. But in endocrine, the hormone is released and they can wander into the bloodstream and they will reach the target site. Okay, the target cell will obviously have what? It will have some receiving entity. The receiving entity mostly is what? The receptors. And these receptors will be very specific for the hormones which is coming. Okay, so the hormone coming and the receptor which is present on the cell membrane, they will be complementary to one another. Okay, so the target cell will have a receptor which will be specific to a given hormone, and the receptor will accept the hormone only if they are complementary in nature. Okay, so it will be activated by either a lipid soluble or a water soluble hormone. Okay, what do we mean by lipid soluble or water soluble hormone? Uh, those hormones which can pass through the lipid bilayer of the cell membrane. Okay, and water soluble means they will bind to the cell surface, which cannot pass through the lipid bilayer cell surface, cell membrane. So they will just bind and they will cause other messengers, other secondary messengers to get activated and carry out the function. Okay, so you need to know this. Hormones can either pass the cell membrane or they can just bind to the surface and then they will cause other signaling reactions. Okay, so receptor stimulation results in a change in the cell activity. So once the hormone is accepted by the receptor, this receptor will cause certain activity changes in the activities of the cell. Basically, whatever the effect of that hormone will be, that effect will be carried out. Okay, so which may be send feedback to the original hormone producing cell. So the change in the activities will lead to the effect of that hormone, and then also there will be a feedback mechanism. The cell will send the feedback to the original hormone producing gland or tissue to stop producing the hormone if it is in sufficient amount, or to produce more if it is in deficient amount. Okay, so there will be two types of receptors. So the mechanism of the action of hormone will be divided into two types depending upon whether the receptors are membrane bound or whether the receptors are intracellular in nature. Now you see this. This is a cell. Blue structure is the hormone. So membrane bound receptor means the hormone cannot pass through the membrane. It will just come and sit onto the receptor, and then further the receptor will create changes by producing some other messengers or some other substances, and then the effect will be seen. The hormone cannot directly go in the cell. It will just bind to the receptor, and then the receptor will carry out further changes by producing some other molecules which will then go to the nucleus and create the changes. Whereas an intracellular receptor, so this type of hormone can directly pass through the cell membrane. This is what we mean by lipid soluble. Okay, here the hormone is not lipid soluble because then it has to pass the plasma membrane. So because it is non soluble in the lipid bilayer, so it will act by membrane bound receptor, and here it can directly pass through it. So it will have an effect on the nucleus directly to create its effect. So this will be under intracellular receptor. We are going to see this one by one. We begin with membrane bound receptor. Okay, so mode of hormone action through membrane bound receptor. As you see in the diagram, what will happen first? The hormone comes in. Okay, the hormone is circulating in the blood. When it reaches a target organ, a cell or tissue, whatever, okay, then the receptor, the complementary receptor will be present. It's like a lock and key mechanism, just like we saw in enzymes in 11th standard. Specific enzyme will be there for specific substrate, like a lock and key mechanism. Similarly, this receptor will get activated only by its complementary hormone, its specific hormone. So this will come. Since it is water insoluble, we are talking about the membrane receptor, that is the receptor will be present at the gate entry in the lipid bilayer. It will attach the hormone, and then the hormone function ends over here. Now the receptor will take forward the activities of the hormone by producing some secondary messengers. So the response will be generated once the hormone comes in and sits onto the receptor. Then this receptor will cause a change or a production of another secondary messenger molecule. It can be either something known as cyclic AMP, adenine monophosphate, or calcium ions, or it can be some other messenger. And then there will be a series of biochemical reaction, and the hormone will then cause an effect to happen. Now here the hormone example under this category is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. What is the follicle stimulating hormone doing? What is the main function of FSH? To do what? To promote ovarian growth. To promote ovarian growth. So this is the plasma membrane of the ovary. So which cell are we talking about? Because the hormone is follicle stimulating hormone. So the ovaries cell membrane is presented, drawn over here. Now the cell receptor will attach the hormone, and then it will not allow the hormone to go directly in. Instead, it will create some other secondary messenger which will bring about a series of chemical reaction which will cause what? The growth of the ovary. So this is how the membrane receptor hormone action through membrane receptor is. So this type of mechanism is shown by water soluble hormones such as FSH. Follicle stimulating is one of the hormones in under the example. Even you have growth hormone, oxytocin, antidiuretic hormone. Okay, we are going to see what are these hormones role. For now, we know what is FSH doing. Okay, then this cannot pass to the lipid membrane, so they will have their target receptor on the cell membrane itself. Okay, where the hormone will bind. Once the hormone binds to the target receptor, what will happen? There is an enzyme known as enzyme adenyl cyclase in this membrane which gets activated. Okay, so hormone binds, the enzyme known as enzyme adenyl cyclase will get activated, and then it will bring about the necessary production of the secondary messenger, which is cyclic AMP. This cyclic AMP acts as a secondary messenger. Okay, then it will pass through the cell membrane, diffuse to the cell membrane, and activate several enzymatic reactions to cause biological changes. And then the target cell will respond to these changes and cyclic MP. So once the effect is achieved, once the purpose of the hormone is achieved, what will happen? This hormone will, the secondary messenger that was produced by this enzyme in the effect of the hormone will deactivate itself by this enzyme known as phosphodiesterase. Because once the function has been carried out, the target is achieved, then there is no need of the secondary messenger like cyclic AMP and all that. So it will get deactivated by the enzyme phosphodiesterase. So the hormone action basically which happens inside a cell is on the use basis. Whenever they are required, they will be secreted. When they are not required, they will be deactivated. Okay, so that was mode of hormone action through membrane receptors. Now we move to the mode of hormone action through intracellular receptors. Now the name itself is telling you intracellular means what? Inside the cell. The receptor for that hormone is present inside the cell. As you see in the diagram also, here the hormone, estrogen is the example of the hormone that we're taking over here. And you see the arrow, they can directly pass through the lipid bilayer. This is the lipid bilayer, and they can directly pass through the lipid bilayer and they can go inside the nucleus, and pass through the cell and go inside the nucleus and carry out their action. Okay, so this type of mechanism is shown by what? Lipid soluble hormones. So they can be fatty acid in nature and steroids in nature. They can easily pass through the plasma membrane. Yes, okay, simple to understand. So they possess intracellular receptor. So where will be the receptor present? On the surface of the cell membrane? No. They will be present inside the cell because they can easily pass through the plasma membrane. So the hormone will go inside, it will bind to the target receptor, and then it will activate the enzyme activity of the cell to bring about biochemical changes. Okay, so here is the receptor hormone complex, and then it will have an effect on the DNA. Then the DNA will carry out transcription, translation, whatever enzyme or whatever activity needs to be carried out, that will be carried out with the effect of this hormone. Okay, then the transcription of the DNA is initiated by the hormone receptor complex. The mRNA will be produced, the protein will be produced, and whatever protein is required accordingly is produced, and their effect will be seen. So estrogen, for example, it is responsible for tissue growth and differentiation. Yes, in female reproductive system. So accordingly, it will bring about changes inside the cell. What you need to know is the difference, what is happening at the cell membrane level of the action in case of steroid hormones, lipid soluble hormones, and what is happening in case of water soluble hormone at the cell membrane. So here the hormone does not enter directly. It will just bind to the receptor, and then the enzyme adenyl cyclase will activate and produce secondary messenger cyclic AMP, and then they will carry out further chemical reactions. Whereas here the hormone directly passes through the plasma membrane and it can have an effect on the nucleus through direct receptor hormone complex which is present in the nucleus, and it will bring about the changes, transcription and translation, and the necessary protein will be produced for its effect. Okay, so this is how again summary chart that you see over here. Okay, lipid soluble hormone passing through the cytoplasm. Yeah, the complex is over here. Then it moves into the nucleus, triggers whatever gene or whatever region of the uh, genes need to be activated for the protein to be synthesized. So transcription and translation will happen and the protein will be synthesized. So this is just for your summary and a recap. You can go through it and make a note of all the important points. So that's all in this video. In the next video, we will be talking about what are the different types of major endocrine glands. First, we will talk about hypothalamus in detail, and then we will talk about pituitary gland. Thank you. Take care. Keep revising. See you in the next video.